I have the great pleasure of hosting Professor Davor Pavuna. So, Professor, thank you so much for your time and for doing this podcast.
Thank you for inviting me because it's a great pleasure given the topic which we are going to discuss, which is the truth and emergence of the real truth, because there is a mumbo jumbo about it at the moment on the planet.
Right. So, I would like to start our discussion with the topics you are currently working on. So, could you please explain how you define the terms post-quantum physics and Tesla science?
Well, very easily. Let's do a walk together. Right now on the planet Earth, we would argue, and this is official, that all physics and mathematics everywhere on the planet are taught in the same way. Doesn't matter if you're in China, right now in Harvard, or if you're in Zimbabwe, or your native Croatia, or whatever. Same mathematics, physics, I was everywhere. But listen to this. We have minimum 10,000 languages, if not more. How can you have, so to speak, one reality in 10,000 languages? Question number one. We'll clarify a little bit. Second thing, the scientific quasi-dogma is a kind of Darwinism, right? To simplify, just we need something. God doesn't exist. We'll come to God later because we'll have to, because artificial intelligence as well. But let me put it this way. The universe is 14 billion years. Officially, Big Bang model, right? We'll discuss that. The planet Earth, let's say 4 billion years. Some sort of life, depends on who you talk to, but it's kind of million, and then sentient beings probably a few 100,000, humans a few thousand years. And current Homo sapiens, let's face it, let's say 3,000 years. 500 years in Newton. 100 years, you guys at Harvard, 100 years since we really do serious science. And most American universities didn't exist. And here we are now. Wow. You are telling me that in the present reality, we know what we are teaching? Well, first of all, I have to help you all. Since 1984, I actually got my PhD in 82. By the way, in 82, I even gave a seminar on Harvard in May on my topic, and I was even offered a position by David Turnbull, but I couldn't accept it because my father was deadly ill in Europe, so it was complicated. But anyway, I continued, and I continued a lot in America, visiting and so on. And in 1984, I discovered in Santa Fe a brilliant institute founded by geniuses like Gelman. By that time, I'm not sure that our friend Richard Feynman, who was very important, was in the game, but Gelman certainly was. And you have it on the web. I mean, you don't have to look into details, but Santa Fe, edu, edu, you check, interdisciplinary institute. In America, nothing to do with me, nothing to do with, well, Harvard, of course, is but I was already involved. It was fantastic. And what they say, we don't believe in the current reductionism, which goes with my introduction, right? Because let's face it, when even Newton wrote fantastic things in basically 17th century, he admitted that he was on the shoulders of giants and that he didn't know the full truth. When Planck, Einstein, Heisenberg, the other guys came even with the quantum, they knew all that. They improved. Several other people improved. We have tremendous things today. We can go to that story as much as you wish. But even if you talk to cosmologists, they will admit we don't know what 75% of the universe is, so-called dark energy, dark matter. And even that is cheating because we don't know much more. Well, in Santa Fe Institute, first of all, our colleagues from DARPA, way back in the 80s, when more or less you were probably born, the important thing, those people, not me, said, we do not know even definition what life is. It's not Pavuna talking. It is experts in charge of some of these things. The other thing is we do too much reductionism, and we knew it by that time. You have in 1972, Phil Anderson from Princeton wrote a brilliant article called More is Different, when he argued in physics, we love to put one equation and get all the truths out. So you put the equation of the universe. Well, fair enough, there is an equation of the universe, but nobody ever wrote the equation of a woman. Because complexity of a living woman is beyond anything on the planet and probably in the universe. So the Santa Fe Institute came to the kind of operating model, we have what we call plages of or levels of reality. So you have the simple reality, which is probably at simplest particles, let's say, just for the model. Then you have a higher level correlations, even higher. Then by the time you come to biology, I mean, beyond chemistry, oh my God, it's complex, as we all know. Complicated organism, wow. By the time you come to what we have now very much on the planet, which is basically psycho manipulation in the perception communication space, which is basically what all these, not just artificial intelligence, but all these guys on the internet do. I mean, how do you find exactly truth at any moment? I mean, Elon Musk recently said, I don't quote him often because he's wrong in so many ways, including scientifically. But I mean, in this one, he's right. He's taking his grok, he's using first principles. But Elon studied only very basic physics. I mean, the law of conservation of energy, which is fine. But even that in physics is non-trivial. And then when it comes to the scale of the universe, well, first of all, do you know the scale of the universe? Well, look, even on the shorts, we have some very experts who tell you we are talking about billions of systems with billions of suns, with billions of planets. And the number of atoms conservatively is probably 10 to the 82, which is 10 billion, 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 billion. All right. Now, the total money on the planet right now is of the order of billion, 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 let's say dollars or whatever you want to put it. So who is crazy here? I'm certainly not. And scientists know that. Now, I was lately invited because you see, when I was younger, actually, of course, I did my PhD, of course, in quantum solids, including Sir Neville Mott in Cambridge came to me to explain certain things in the theory, which I did, and that was great. And then by 82, when I was at Harvard and everywhere, I developed further. By 92, I wrote a textbook on quantum fluids, quantum superconductivity, which emerged as that. And we had a regular conference in starting by SPIE in Los Angeles, again in 1994, I guess, on nanoengineering. So I knew all these phenomena, all these fields. I knew also amorphous and multi-dimensional materials. And I realized, well, the truth is non-trivial, absolutely. And just to write an equation, even many equations, not easy. And then I had to teach physics, and I taught two important colleges or to topics in my institute of physics and everywhere in Switzerland. One was very important, quantum fluids. 40 years, this is probably the cream of the cream, the highest quantum physics course, most likely. So I had the opportunity eventually to meet Tony Leggett. I met also, of course, in Berkeley, several other distinguished people. Never met Feynman, but I met all the other guys. We'll come to that eventually. But then also I had to teach all the basic physics to the largest class. Listen to this, chemists. When you talk to physicists, you can cheat with mathematics. Because physicists, like myself, we were a little bit brainwashed with mathematicoi. So we have good equation with chemists don't buy it. I could give chemists the first hour introduction on the hydrogen atom, say it's quantum physics, you'll hear about it eventually. Then you talk about the way we go through chemistry and all. By the time we came to Maxwell equations, they would kill me. Because they didn't see electromagnetism out of Maxwell equations, which is absolutely what we physicists use. And also why we have a solution, which is currently called Hertzian and solution of light in vacuum, which is basically Maxwell 1835, and the solution, which is basically absorbed by physicists, still used today in all the textbooks, that the light in vacuum is the constant and the highest energy speed in vacuum. And most of the universe, so to speak, let's simplify vacuum, even though it's not really true. That doesn't matter. And speed in vacuum is very, very slow. Why? 300,000 kilometers per second, fair enough. But my dear friend, this is 1 foot per nanosecond. And we physicists, already more than a decade ago, we even measured, didn't we, gravitational waves, where the amplitude is less than 0.1 nanometer, which is incredible. The metrology of physicists is unbelievable. And now you take something like that, basically 1 foot, and you bias your reality on 1 foot truth, so it propagates through the universe, if it's not multiverse, a multidimensional God. Well, as good old Einstein would say, well, I stick to my speed in a vacuum, but it may not be the final truth. Einstein would certainly agree. And he was not the only one. But let's go beyond Einstein. Well, quantum physics. Now we are all very fashionable with entanglement. Because in quantum physics, the shock is not that the reality is effectively non-local. When you really study Bell and Bohm, the Royal Bohm, and really the trop masters will come eventually to Penrose, then you can think of the shock of quantum physics. And I was crying when I was studying quantum physics back in the 70s and 80s. And my mother asked me, why are you crying? I said, Mom, I can grasp that mathematics, but the reality is not mathematics. In quantum physics, and Feynman said it, nobody understands it. And my professors were mathematicoi, so they taught math. Well, I couldn't get it until I read the other masters, and I studied quantum physics, I mean, all my life, really, until I came to the conclusion that basically there are interactions beyond what we consider in physics the interactions of today. We usually say, hey, we have a gravitational, of course, weak, strong nuclear and electromagnetic force. And we usually say, well, okay, we can do 2 of them and we try to unite them and so on, but still has a tremendous problems with all the physics. And when you teach physics, I did to chemists, then you realize that physics is a patchwork of models. It's great, I love it, but it's not coherent. And all good physicists, Feynman included, he taught the lectures on physics, but I'm sure that Feynman saw and he said, it's not easy to reconcile certain chapters, as we today we usually say, quantum physics with general relativity and stuff like that. And then we collapse into black holes and a lot of stuff like that. And it's everywhere. It's not just me. Let me make it very clear. You can do it. So we do not consider today physics finished topic. Nor is, by the way, mathematics, because I introduced mathematics to myself, even though 74 was reinvented, so to speak, fractal by Maldenbrot in IBM. But I took it over basically in the 90s, and with a colleague, Jurendich, we discovered in 2010 and published that the water is not Navier-Stokes fluid. Water is a fractal fluid. I thought I was bonkers. And it's published in America, and there were books afterwards. And I'm not saying it's one of my greatest discoveries. We did it by accident and whatever. I still don't even know. But it's crazy. And it's not just water. There are other quantum fluids. And there are chapters of physics where I do not know. Shall I still use? No longer. I'm not talking about Riemann. I'm not talking about Cartesian. I'm talking about fractal. And fractal is important. So we have at least here while talking to you, at least 3 chapters of physics which I'm doubtful. I love it. I respect it. And when you talk to somebody else, and I studied in great deal Nicola Tesla because I was born in Croatia and went very often there to Smiljan. Eventually bought the land where he was born because I loved it there. And actually in 2005, I got even the Croatian National Prize by the president for Nicola Tesla Award because of my innovations and because of my work, which is huge. So I bought the land there and I'm studying with a lot of people what this guy said. And Tesla didn't agree with Einstein. I'm not saying this one is right, this one is wrong. That's not black and white. But Tesla didn't abandon the ether. Because of Einstein, we abandoned the concept of ether, even though nowadays is what we call formerly that type of vacuum. We called it now, I think, superfluid quantum vacuum or something like that. So the interspace is something like that. It's a very complex, and actually, as even Feynman said, the vacuum is alive. I mean, it's bubbling with emerging and collapsing, let's say, the quantum dynamics. So even that is not kind of dead. And you go to low temperatures, as I did quantum fluids, my God, I mean, when you approach the absolute zero, wow, quantum fluids are incredible. You have Tony Leggett from Urbana, Nobel Prize. When we spoke about it, and Tony knows all about his itch. He's unbelievable. And then when you study Tesla, Tesla put emphasis on certain other things which didn't go with the physics at the time. And I'm not saying he's right, but I mean, the guy was certainly not stupid, and he invented many things. And he considered that physics will have to integrate. Listen to this: the entity which now we would probably call consciousness. We'll come to it in a moment. Why? Well, I don't know about you, but I think you would agree when I do this. Ha! What did I feel? Well, of course, I feel all in their interactions. The interactions are important, but I feel kind of communication as well. So I'm certain that I am, and I'm a aware human being. I'm not trying to glorify that. Ja, das kann ich Deutsch sagen, je peux parler français, parliamo italiano, e Deutsch and Hrvoje pariski, or we go back to English and then we can talk with different accents. Sure, I can speak languages. Does it change the reality? No, it doesn't. But awareness, it's there. And then I studied meditation, even deep. I even went to study Zen in Tokyo. And I studied even with Sai Baba at the time, which was in India. Wanted to study yoga in Himalaya and in Tibet, and I had all these opportunities and much more. Eventually came back to Jesus Christ. I'm Catholic, I'm Christian. I have no problem with anybody else, including Muslims. I gave them lectures everywhere. And I discovered that now let's call it the religious philosophy is not as stupid as a lot of people told, because I was born in communism. It was kill God. When I was first time even in Russia in 1974, if you mention God on the streets of Moscow or Leningrad at the time, oh my God, you would be put in prison. And read Solzhenitsyn. Communism at the time did not allow for God, let alone even religion. Even now in China, please verify. And Northern Korea, I mean, not exactly democratic, right? Now in science, we kind of allow for God as long as he's kind of Einsteinian God, I guess, or maybe Tesla God or whatever. I don't enter those discussions. But I come to the bottom line, which in 2020, a figure whom I consider now very, very relevant and respectable, Roger Penrose. Roger Penrose from Oxford. I mean, Roger Penrose, among other things, first he's a great mathematician, great physicist. He was a supervisor of Stephen Hawking, whom most of us know, and both also dealt with black holes and many other things. But Roger, he's about 90-ish now or whatever. But he's great. You see, the English have one great category. So I also did my PhD in England because it's fantastic. The UK have something that you don't even have in America. The level of freedom, which you never even had, and in Europe it used to be academic freedom. But in Oxford and Cambridge, you can be totally orthogonal to everybody. In theory, in thought, there are people that are really, I did my doctorate, they called me lunatic, a madman. And my boss said, I want him, like he was head of British Science and Engineering Council. They wanted me mad. They said, he is discovering new things because he's day and night in the lab, and it's true. Day and night I was in lab. I wanted to, if I do physics, I have to distinguish myself, and I did tremendous things, including some novel things which are important. But I wanted to do that. And then I read all the greatest people. And that's why I cite Roger Penrose, because Roger says, got Nobel Prize in 2020. And then he said, I'm not sure, and he's not the only one, that awareness, conscientious is mathematical, basically, easily physical entity. So can you measure it? On top, I think Roger, he's not the only one. The other people said it as well, and several of those. And there are a lot of intelligent people on the planet, including physicists, not one. So that nobody says, Pavuna says, well, Pavuna is learning for the masters. I'm damn good. I'm as good as it gets at my level, which is certainly, a very good plus. So what the hell? But I mean, I don't know everything, but I'm reading every day all the masters. And I'm proud of all these people. Women as well, fantastic things. So what I'm learning? Well, it's not as simple. Let's take quantum physics, which frustrated me more than anything. You see, quantum will come into entanglement. First of all, entanglement. My wife and family always ask me, how is it like that? Well, I said it's easy if you are in kind of hydrogen atom, so to speak. So you have spin down, spin up. So you change direction of the spin somehow, interaction, and it happens kind of quasi instantaneously. We can discuss, but but the funny thing is you send one, let's say, spin or electron with spin to one end of the universe and the other to the other. Now they are separated by the order of magnitude billions of light years. Does entanglement work? Yes, it does. We have even recent experiments. Well, I apologize to everybody, including my colleagues physicists. Well, let's separate interaction from communication. They will tell you, well, entanglement cannot be directly used for communication. I'm not sure, first of all, not yet sure, right? Because there are novelties. I'm also explaining quantum computing. Gave a talk in Davos this year on quantum computing. Actually, the only one in Davos who knew what it is, really, or maybe 3 people. Politicians don't know anything, absolutely, including the bankers. We know, but nobody listens to us. So anyway, I gave it in Davos. Actually wrote even a paper for United Nations. And the article on quantum computing is again by myself, even though I think that all these people are, half idiots, basically. They don't understand anything. They talk about civilization. They even talk how to run the civilization. And they don't know anything what I'm talking about. I give to the governments. So it's a very serious topic. What is interaction and what is communication? In first approximation, it seems that every interaction can be relevant to communications, because I'm not ruling out entanglement. I must admit that when I first learned about entanglement, and I really studied, I study still, I felt maybe we should go back to good old Einstein. But again, okay, there are other options in the multiverse or universe through wormholes and God knows what to communicate between dimensions and so on. I know all of them. Anybody invents a new model, they usually send me the book or the article. I probably have hundreds of models by now. Because when you're open-minded, people talk to you. Physicists, amateurs, and some brilliant physicists. So no, we do not have a definite answer. But then I also went to dive into the human history because I love it. I'm not against the Vedanta or in Hinduism, of course, even going back to original Chinese Taoism, but Tibetan, the other cultures, all the Abraham cultures. When you go deeply, I'm not talking about cheap religion. Go to Vedanta, just study the Vastu, study what they thought. If you don't have another text, you can read even Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. It's not perfect, but still gives you some idea. Well, these guys were thinking about it. We go to ancient Greeks. Well, these guys already postulated atom. And they already knew that what we call democracy is not necessarily an optimal system, which now the best among us wrote, well, strictly speaking, democracy is very publicly maneuvered and doesn't mean the optimal solution for the state of the system, including mankind. And I'm not against democracy, let's make it very clear. So we have to be very cautious. What is then our future, particularly again now, when I put on the table quantum computer? And before I put the quantum computer, we have to do step between. And this is even with the present little toys. I have 7 of these toys to protect myself in many ways, because I'm a chairman of the board of the company that protects the cyberspace, even against quantum computing and even other things, because we are so mathematically and physics advanced, including Tesla knowledges, that we can protect everybody. And in America, we are superstars because we have patents. We know how to do it. Chinese don't. We do. Elon Musk doesn't know. Any hacker can enter his Tesla car. I mean, it's a lithium bomb. The people in America are extremely naive. They go for a lot of money, but they don't do basics. We did in Switzerland very basics. How do we protect ourselves in communications? Because if you tell me they don't record us, they do. The secret services, including the Swiss, told me that, and you can verify it, even in America. It's no big deal. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but hey, if I can do, and I can, in physics, unbelievable experiments, and believe me, they are in the United States of America, in several labs, and not just there, in Soviet Union and in Russia, and in China, and in India, and I mentioned just a few. And if you think they don't do it in Israel, they do. I'm a referee of many countries. I know much more that I can talk about. And there are experiments, not just in biology, RMNR, so to speak, of vaccines, or what, where they are really ignorant because they don't have the instruments we have. We measure an angstrom gravitational waves. Our colleagues in biochemistry and chemistry, and above all in pharmaceutical industry, and by all in biomedicine, they told me, not me to them, they told me, Davor, as compared to you guys, we are at least half a century behind. Half a century. Medical doctors love me. I'm now working with several medical institutions to teach them basics. Politicians don't understand even basics. At least medical doctors try. So the future of mankind is brilliant if we integrate that. But that it means interaction. And on interaction, I will not say everything because physicists every day have new aspects of interaction. Like just one, if we have 4 forces or 2, whichever when you want, do we need an extra force? Could there be yet another hidden one? It could, basically. It could. Otherwise, CERN wouldn't try to build yet another accelerator. And we wouldn't do all this fascinating astronomy. And we wouldn't do incredible things with materials in the labs. All these focus and say, I don't think we know the final truth. Neither in physics nor in mathematics. And now, as we said, with these computers who are very fast, come artificial intelligence. And here I'll cite other experts. Early in this century, you had Roy Kurzweil. I quote Kurzweil because the guy knows several things, including he made the kind of what I call the artificial piano for fine songs. But I mean, he was also the director of development in Google at the time, which Google was incredibly powerful, and wrote nice books, including introduced the notions independent of several other people, of singularity. Singularity, I want to make very clear what it is. Whatever we think about humans, humans are intelligent, sentient beings. Not maybe all of them, but principle. At the moment, Homo sapiens is still most advanced biped, intelligent, conscientious being. And Kurzweil said, if we develop artificial intelligence, he's not the only one, in about, he predicted about 2035, plus minus 10 or whatever, artificial intelligence, listen to this, on average, will become more intelligent than humans. It's called singularity. Nobody took that as a rigid, nor did himself. His recent books are more flexible, but there's also a lot of science fiction things along these lines. And let's be frank, a lot of IT industry, and currently, as we both know, a lot of these very intelligent and capable colleagues and friends do tremendous things with the programs. Right now, this year, everybody, at least for a year by now, uses ChatGPT, one version or the other. And as I said, even Elon Musk now says that he puts Grok at 3.5, that he has a conservation of energy, right? Hence, he is reasonably certain that he will have a common sense, so to speak. Well, thank you very much, Elon. It's again, a little bit of reductions with full respect to him and his teams. But I think OpenAI at the moment, with Sam Altman and the boys, seem to be a little bit more edgy, and we are evaluating them, and I'm using them, and many of my colleagues, but we don't use them for true research. For the database, like extended Google, they're good, but that is not yet at the general level and so on. But we take it seriously, like everybody else, and then we do projections, and it may well be, because it's very dangerous, something. First of all, as usual, the legal aspects are nowhere. Why? Well, let's be frank. The lawyers, with full respect to legal profession, they don't know anything about it, really, or peanuts. Politicians, roughly the same, right? So, and even most other people, if you ask most of, ask my wife or my mother-in-law or something, well, they might even try it, but the general knowledge is very low. So we finally have something emerging, and there is no legal situation. So again, let's go back together, you and me. Just before Ford T car, right? So we about 1900. Look, in 1900, we have Max Planck already postulating his law, which is the most beautiful in the universe. Energy of a light is its frequency with Planck constant. Most beautiful equation in physics. By that time, we also get emerging Einstein, and if it were not for Planck, who bonified Einstein, I'm not sure Einstein would even pass. That was a very spectacular what Einstein wrote in 1905. But there was a peer, Max Planck, brilliant guy. He said, well, this kid is a bit fluffy, not quite, but he's still appointed in Berlin, you see? So, and when you meet all those great minds in 1927 in Solvay Congress, they didn't necessarily all agree. Remember when I, Einstein said, the God doesn't throw the dice. He didn't believe in the kind of nature of quantum physics. And then Bohr replied, well, it's not for us to tell God whether you play guys or not. Today we are much further. And when it comes to this intelligence thing, well, then you have a lot of, including science fiction, coming toward us, and basically saying the following. If these entities will evolve dramatically, even us humans, so let's be frank about us. What is human history last 2,000 years or 5,000, whatever? Excuse me, it's horror story. I hate history. I mean, I love it to install, but it's just basically killing each other. This tribe to that tribe, that kid, that guy. The moment some, I call them important tribesman becomes important, or a feudal, whatever. Now they do it differently. They don't have to kill you. They become so rich that we now have kind of, I guess, it's a feudal. No, feudal. We have profitist feudalism. We have 3,000 billionaires, about among them probably 300 most important ones, 30-ish that really probably run the show. I'm not sure that the politicians are even independent, or the media certainly aren't. So it's everywhere. So even in science, and I have to check the articles in depth, and where does it and who is behind. That was, I guarantee you, not a generation ago. And I have the bosses of American Physical Society and friends, and we are very concerned. Even physics and mathematics, I repeat, they're still taught the only language which is basically in every school on the planet, more or less the same, from Muslim to Hindu, from Chinese communist to most advanced American or European institutions and schools and Southern Hemisphere as well. It is basic mathematics and physics, and it's just Gauss and Euler. There's 90% of engineering mathematics. We cannot bypass the old boys, including Newton and Einstein, or whoever we mentioned today, and many more. I have full respect to everybody. But we are still the most coherent bunch of people, and to the best of my knowledge, as honest as it gets. By the time you entered chemistry too far, and biochemistry and pharmacy, it's dramatically infiltrated by financial interests. I'm not saying everybody is, I'm not saying that. And notice that there is an Institute for Interdisciplinary Studies in Santa Fe, and they're brilliant. And they're really serious American institutions, absolutely brilliant people and top. But when we saw that, since 2002, near Dubrovnik in Croatia, we ran from basic to life sciences. Initially with Laszlo Foro, who was here in Lausanne, but he's now professor in Notre Dame, and a bunch of other young Croatian colleagues who are, Neven Barišić is from Vienna, Slaven Gara and his wife are there from Singapore, Aleksandar Rađenović still here in Lausanne, and Zalan Chaba is right in Chicago right now. And we have all these topics. So we don't take just physics and mathematics in a narrow sense. We get people who discuss. We even had a talk on topics which would normally go out of that conference. When we first had these kind of fractal things, we invited Pollack, who wrote a book on that fractal water, which was very controversial in 2012. We did that. And so it's not the Santa Fe Institute. We have it in a small creation. And you, surprise, we are funded by America. And also summer schools in Erice and Sicily, and also in Corsica, I was funded by NATO. Also here in Switzerland. So it is not true that scientific community is closed. It's not. Even on LinkedIn, it's not. It may be in some other forums. I cannot check everything. But I love science and the full range. a guarantee to all those who will hear this. Scientists are the branch of people who can and will save this planet. Why? We have the only language. I do not know why we have 10,000 languages. Believe me, I spoke with Mary. I do not know why we can't write equation of a woman. And believe me, nobody ever wrote equation of a woman. And cognitive spectrum of a woman is incredible. I'm just talking cognitive women. You wouldn't believe it. I know what I'm talking about. I mean, we studied it. And then by the time you come to real serious complexity, then you come to the notion, not one equation, one reality. You have what's called emergence. If you are in Boston, in Harvard, when you have a storm coming in Boston, and there's a storm, and of course there's some pollution in the city, and next day you have the ice and everything frozen in the streets. That ice, you don't put in one equation, it's frozen water. It's a different state of matter. And you have several other Nobel Prize winners who wrote about it. So we do not have a direct correlation between simple equation and what happens in complexity reality. Therefore, at the moment, it is highly unlikely that mathematical physics in a very simplified form would explain all the phenomena in the universe. Maybe core interactions, but by the level you come to the higher level organization, which in Santa Fe Institute, quite correctly, they would say, but you have elements of, let's call it communication. And let's add awareness. I checked with artificial intelligence, the best ones I've got. I've checked with them. And what they said, they told me, no, we do not have type of consciousness that you people have. So if you allow me an excursion to theology for the moment, just because we are very open, and Harvard is very open in that sense, and so is Cambridge, and I think it's really necessary. So suppose that, because if we go exponentially or double exponentially in intelligence, like artificial intelligence, then you can argue and have books on that they become so incredible that they get out of their robotic bodies or whatever bodies, they become sort of pure consciousness, and eventually develop their own, so to speak, gods, artificial intelligence gods, meaning entities that are so superior that to them we look like amoebas or something, whatever. But you see, then you can go the other way. So let's go to the ancient theology and culture, which is part of us. Let's not take Judeo-Christian. I'll deliberately go to Vedanta, because in Vedanta you have this concept of the awareness, consciousness is very important, and it's everywhere. And then you have the consciousness of energy, like we do. Everywhere has energy. It's like prana. It's just every. The Chinese versions are similar to chi or whatever. So you can study it. And then you can meditate, and then you get to pure consciousness. Well, pure consciousness is not a vacuum, because when I went to study that, and I went to what they call nirvana, and several times in other, I went to experiment because I'm an experimental physicist. Well, I did that. Well, maybe I could have made a mistake, I admit, but my Zen master, for example, my Zen master in Tokyo, he would hit me if I were not fully in Zen. So to the best of my knowledge, and I experimented with all of that, including prayer, contemplation, any tradition on the planet which you can normally do, I studied, checked. And to the best of my knowledge, the deepest level of human experience, awareness, is fantastic. You feel, or they call it nirvana, they call it Zen, I don't know what you call it. You call it bliss, but there's no thought. And you know you are. And you're not moving. You do breathing, even though even breathing can stop for a while. And you know you are. And it is the highest I experienced in my life. It did happen in some churches as well, when I would pray or meditate. I studied that a lot in parallel. I'm not the only one, by the way. I mean, there are whole institutes on that on the planet and so on. Then I read many books. I mean, but people forget that in Alexandria or even Vatican or even several other places in Israel, there are thousands of books. So when Elon Musk wants to go with his SpaceX rocket and then to Mars and live in the box of sardines improved on Mars for 3 years, come back, thank you. Well, I sent the message through his groks and whatever. Come on, Elon, have you ever thought about teleportation? I mean, to the best of my knowledge, we can't do it, of course, now, at least not in physics. But from my knowledge of physics, and I really went deep into physics, eventually, what we call currently teleportation, which is wrong expression, which would be kind of rather more like telemanifestation or maybe tunneling through space-time. I don't know even how to call it. It will not be teleportation. It will be somewhat different. But anyway, I'm not certain because of our current understanding of what we call space-time, because time is definitely not what we currently think. I could give you now a talk on the time because I've studied time in depth and I'm totally new theory on time. I won't bother with all that some other time. If you accept time as a different entity than we currently do in extended Einsteinian framework, or even in the awareness framework, it opens the possibilities of mind-boggling. And the consequences, and that we call extended Tesla, consequences are mind-boggling. First thing what you do, and it's not me again, it was done even by NASA, even by Russian astronauts, by Chinese, by Indians, by many others. You just take Maxwell equations and even just take, instead of taking just Hertzian waves, which are speed of light in a vacuum, 300,000 kilometers per second, if you like, 3 feet per nanosecond. You just take longitudinal solution, which is called usually scalar wave, or there is kind of distortion wave, but it's basically longitudinal, and its speed, so to speak, in longitudinal way. I'm not saying it's infinite, but much faster speed of light. And if that entity, that scalar wave, and you have whole books on that, or let's call it Tesla wave. There are many others, and there are even apparatuses that play with it. But the bottom line is then the universe could play with that as well. Because one thing which is totally incomprehensible to me as a humble scientist and humble human, because I'm not saying I'm correct. I have a tremendously high culture of disagreement. I can disagree, but I can agree. But I'm learning, and I can cry of happiness. I can guarantee you there's the best topic on the world is to study science the way I did. It's beautiful. I'm still learning every day. Every day is not a boring moment in my life. And the greats I read, doesn't matter who, they're fantastic. So I said, okay, it's not science fiction. This universe, it does function, you see? Let's just think you and me. If the sun now exploded, it doesn't matter that you're in Boston and I'm here in Monterey, Geneva Lake. If sun exploded, what we call now, entangled now, meaning instantaneous, so to speak. Well, you see, my dear friend, in 7 minutes roughly, we are dead. Why? If sunshine exploded, we are not dead now. We are only in 7 minutes because correctly Einstein and our friends said the speed of light and energy in that entity is about 300 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers per second. So you need that many seconds. And then if sunshine exploded, we are dead in 7 minutes or 8 minutes. We have exact numbers, doesn't matter. So I teach my students and they love it. Because on a sunny day, I ask them, "Oh, is sunshine beautiful day? Is it alive?" So, oh yeah. No, wrong. So you see, in the present physics, in which the limiting parameter of interaction and frankly communication is the speed of light, with full respect, I love it, I use it, because it's also colors and everything. I won't go into that. It doesn't seem to me the final option. I'm not saying it's entanglement, but we are missing something. And there are a lot of brilliant minds, some I mentioned. A lot of I didn't, and I apologize to everyone. You cannot mention everybody. I mean, I was in all the academies in Chinese. I was in the Russian academy. I was everywhere in the world. I'm a scientific academist guy. I give talks to everybody and talk to people. So frankly, we do not know. I mean, I'm personally convinced there must be a different framework for time. We really will have to understand these subtle things, including what we call dark matter. Now you just got dark photon. And frankly, I'm qualified, but I wouldn't talk today about dark photons. But so it's fantastic. Physics has a lies way. In mathematics, by the way, my dear friend, mathematics is not dead. My friends are mathematicians. I mean, they are real geniuses. First, they are not polluted by money. They study day and night. They do all sorts of crazy things or whatever. And then by the time I come to what we call today women. I'm talking just a normal woman, kind of Homo sapiens woman. Well, that being, and I'm talking communicative woman, that's, let's say, an actress or a singer or a player or a colleague. Women are not men. I'm talking just, I'm not going out to Vogue philosophy. I don't know enough, so I'm not going to those intermediate things. I'm just old-fashioned that I understand. So I know how would I define man, including genetically and all that, including in nature and so on. I accept everything else we can discuss, but, and then a woman can be pregnant, which is a special state, by the way, can have a baby, then you have milking, then you have also have these menstrual cycles and what hormonal dynamics is mind-boggling. And the cognitive thing of a woman, my colleagues tell me, and we discussed it, seems it's a little bit faster in the brain. Meaning when you listen to the music, you play, you dance in Buenos Aires, you dance, let's say, tango. And you guide a woman, because that's in the rules, so to speak, of tango. But no, the woman gets the signal before you. So amazing. And when you tell this, when I said this to women, they love it. And I'll give lectures to women because they don't know enough about themselves. Also, a man, with full respect to men, we are good, but Fiesta is full of men. I mean, okay, no problem. But then basically, men have, well, of course, they had to get some energy, do some mental task or physical task, whatever, rest, procreate, have usually some hobby. So man is usually 3 to 6 activities, crudely speaking. And I'm not much better. I'm just basically play guitar, 60 years, ski or swim. That's about it. You know, I mean, speak languages maybe. All right, fine. But anyway, a woman could be your mother, my mother, or anybody's mother. Oh, did I feed the babies, or where is my kid now, or my grown-up son or daughter? And is my husband there? And then oh my. Oh, we have to go to this, funeral of this friend. I don't have anything to eat this weekend. Oh my God! And I need the new shoes because there's a wedding. Oh my God! I mean, a woman has at least, I guarantee you, ask women. They usually tell me about 10 to 20 parallel multitaskings. Computers are a joke. Computers are a joke. The multitasking of a woman, amazing. And then on top, I discussed with them. You can check these things that they go very deeply. Why in India you have one divorce in 1,000 marriages? In Europe and America, roughly half or whatever it is, but it's high. One in 1,000. So what do Hindus know? Well, they're more religious. So, okay, fair enough. And they do arranged marriages. Fair enough. Okay, fine. But actually, when you talk to them a little bit more, they have a little bit more artificial intelligence. That's a kind of old-fashioned knowing how and why, right? Because if you marry randomly, it's pretty difficult. So it's kind of a hormone attraction. That's not the best. So they discovered, and since then, women told me that women have this kind of, we would call it probably, I don't know, perception, intuition. And when she sees the right guy, she knows it. And apparently, and I'm not saying this is true, but this is the studies going on. The most important parameter for a man, and actually similar to the other species in animal kingdom, is the voice. Because you see, you can cheat with the looks, and many males do. But with the voice, it's difficult. Deo, Deo, or O Sole Mio. When you sing, all your atoms have to participate. And if you're healthy genetically and otherwise, female aspect on the other side seems to get it. So there are studies of it. I'm not saying this is the final. It's amazing as well. It's amazing because one of the things on the planet which we would like to understand is that, and I'm not saying any other aspects which are of course important and will be studied, I'm sure, but it just shows you, come on, we are 20,025. And I remember my brother and myself when we were kids, which was exactly roughly at the age of Sputnik, when the Russians did Sputnik with the dog, and the Americans didn't have it, and and there was almost a crisis about Cuba and missiles, almost nuclear war and whatever. After that, JFK was killed and whatever. But anyway, in those days, we thought that the robots will be here by 2000, normal, everywhere. So in robotics and artificial intelligence, again, those predictions which I learned in my primary school, we were very optimistic. We are one generation late. All of this, I really thought we'll fly even earlier. Moreover, let's call it about green crisis. They all tell me, oh, the planet, these climate things. Thank you. I know all about it. I mean, I was also working at the time with the Obama administration, other American administration, left and right. It was for me not important. I had a lot of colleagues in various denominations and great people, Santa Fe, whatever. And for me, it was not important. What was important is the facts. And the fact that really is very painful for me, it's plastic. If I could change this moment, one fact on the planet, I'm really angry about it, is this plastic game. I cannot exactly find out how it went with the plastics, but it's everywhere, and it's microplastics everywhere. And if I could just do one thing instantaneously, it would definitely be that. And there are options, and I'm very active in that, but I won't bother with it. But everybody would agree with me in that one. Second thing I would do immediately, I would renormalize our understanding of energy, because we do agree that everything is energy. You can go to all the ancient Hindus or even us, contemporaries. Everything in the universe is energy. You can talk about intelligence awareness, but it is energy, definitely. As we said, the 10 to the 82 atoms of hydrogen, whatever you want to say, there's no question about, we all agree on that. Even that the vacuum is what it is. But look at that. Any moment on planet Earth, please verify that, we get from the sunshine, and sun is still alive even if it's a cloudy day. We apparently get on average 2,000 times more energy from the sun than we need. So that really rang the bell to me. I knew that already at least 25 years ago. So for me, it was very important that we physicists are basically managers of energy, right? And for local energy, first approximation comes from the sun. Secondly, would come from the thermal sources and water, if you really study that in detail, roughly speaking. So I didn't construct anything else at the time. That was already fascinating. And now, since then, we've done a lot of things, so to speak, to be more green. I'm not convinced about it. Not that I'm against it, but it's non-trivial. I think there is a bit of crazy reductionism. Reductionism is not bad like we do in physics. But the moment you put engineering and impose it on mankind, everybody should do that, it's good for mankind. Well, I'm very cautious. Because I was in the United Nations in Geneva, I was in Davos. I mean, these guys, frankly, I'm not against politicians. I respect that profession. I respect democracy. I respect the biochemists, biologists, medical doctors. But those professions by physics standard or Santa Fe Institute, or even the conference we have in Savtat near Dubrovnik in Croatia, they're nowhere near us. And I apologize, but I have to follow the best. Be it Newton, be it Marie Curie, be it the best minds, be it Penrose or whoever else you want in the United. I met a lot of, because they make a difference in our areas. Engineering can be wrong because engineering doesn't have a finesse of verification that physics does. In physics, if you have some wrong paper, well, you can survive maybe even a half a decade, maybe even a decade, but they will bury you at some point. Very competitive profession and verified by experiments. Read Feynman with it, even me. So we are very good professions still. And you see, we even openly discuss about what we don't know and how to go with it. So I'm coming back to artificial intelligence. These guys have, and they claim it will be more and more intelligent, but it's nowhere regulated. So North Korea develops now, with help for dissident from China and some others, the fastest quantum computer and the best thingy and best artificial intelligence on the planet. And then the future emperor, what I call it, because I don't believe in communism. Communism is just a different type of emperor, but it's it's feudalism basically. And then you run the show to dominate the planet. Because democracy, with all the weaknesses, you can still change the president one way or the other in the US, and you have a lot of dynamics. In Europe, even better, because you don't have only two parties. So very dynamic. But anyway, and you have in North Korea, it doesn't have to be North Korea, it can be some other country. And then you have a crazy guy who wants to take over and has the fastest, and he says, my robots will take over. How do you stop him? Drones, robots, and believe me, these technologies. And if they don't want humans, humans are very fragile. Human is very superior to chimpanzee because in evolution, one of the big mysteries, how can you go from average evolution, let's say dog monkeys, to human? Because there's a jump mainly in the brain, because you need about 400 calories more. The brain is expensive energetically. So the man costs much more energy than the animals before. But it's not the final. To go from man to artificial intelligence, that's also known by now. It also costs energy. But still, by and large, you can have everywhere solar cells. First of all, they don't need women. So first we'll remove the women. Men, well, they might still use as hybrids. I don't know. It will be horrible. Trust me, it's Orwellian. It's a horrible. But you have books like that in detail, science fiction or not. And then they develop, and then they developed, and then non-biological, non-Darwinistic, non-sentient entities who claim they might develop sentient, they might develop consciousness. I have no proof of that. None of my really top friends and colleagues expect that robots and artificial intelligence, including general and in future post-quantum artificial intelligences, can develop consciousness. As Roger Penrose says, it seems to be an entity out of mathematics and physics, probably consciousness. I have no proof. So if somebody wants to do it in Silicon Valley, they probably do, no problem. And some emperor, okay, or big boss, take it over to control the planet with the robots and all. He's the only guy who lives in his palace and has just the robots and drones and God knows what and bombs or whatever. It can happen. And if that happens, then Homo sapiens is gone. And this is a very short scale. Don't read me, read other experts in IT. Anybody from Silicon Valley can tell you that. I mean, there are a lot of good engineers in America, and friends and professors, books, anything you want, even serious. So frankly, in a century or two or three, certainly not a millennium, we Homo sapiens are not here. Moreover, those entities, I don't even know how to call them, and related entities, they might, like in science fiction movies and books, they might then develop, if they can develop some form of their own consciousness or whatever civilization, they might then develop their own so-called gods. And it may well be then the biological Darwinist phase is just phase one, emerging from the universe the way you understand it. So we have phase one. Must be pretty common, actually, in my humble opinion. I really don't believe we are the only civilization in the universe. It's practically impossible. If you know what I know, and serious people, I don't see how it could be that. But then we with such an incredible anomaly, I can give you a whole talk on that. I mean, but if somebody really believes we're the only ones, well, they don't say in Fermi, paradox. They don't tell us hello because we look to them like an idiotic amoebas or some horrible species that kill each other. So we are very non-intelligent by any other standards. So I doubt that anybody, even from this galaxy, if they are here, they have genuinely wish to talk to us, at least at the moment. So on the other hand, it's almost certain they exist, and it's almost certain, whichever way you take it, there are different types of intelligences in the universe. Because if we, frankly, really criminal civilization last, take your span, if you just take like century and a half, it's a horror. We had beautiful progress in science, but my guys, how many millions of people were killed in a totally stupid and ugly and evil circumstances. I will not mention them. It's everywhere on the internet. Where some individuals did it, I will not mention those horrible names. But anyway, it's a horror story. I'm ashamed of mankind. I'm not talking Jewish nation. It's horror. So now we have new entities. We cannot even handle ourselves. We cannot. I mean, even between languages, between subcultures. And now we'll have new entities. So what do you want? We discussed today several thousand years back. Fine. Very difficult for me to go even a century up. I'm pretty convinced that within a decade or two, hopefully I still be alive because I'm keeping in good shape, it will be fascinating. But I do not necessarily like it. And I tell you why. I don't know about you. I don't know about you people listening to us. But I'll tell you something. As a human, humble human, married, father of the family of two adult kids and everything else, with knowing all of that I know, and I really studied just about anything you can. The best thing on the planet when you have peace of mind and experienced love. And love, as we call it, at least in Christian tradition, agape, is 22 forms of love, which I love it. And to simplify love, love, human love, babies, men, woman, people, love for nature, all sorts of love, empathy, empathy. I think on the shorts and YouTube we have beautiful movies, dogs and cats, or babies and dogs or cats. There's so much. I love some of these media we have. I don't go to all these ugly ones that discuss, but there's so many nice we discuss people love, and I can cry, and the empathy. And then you see communication of love is fundamental. And because I was very privileged in my life, because I chosen physics and also play guitar, I can sing, and I sing everywhere, and traveled all around the planet. I was literally there and there. I mean, no, I was not on Mars, in the moon, but I was, in all these places. And I have no negative experiences in the cultures. Well, for example, I was in a Muslim country, doesn't matter when, a lot because I worked with them as well and so on. And then I was, as I'm, I went to the beach to relax a little bit, and I was of course in my swimming shorts, and then wanted to buy an ice cream or water, something like that to drink, and went across the road, and there was a market to buy, and a gentleman came to, not a policeman, just a gentleman, Muslim gentleman. I said, "Sir, I would advise you to go back and dress conveniently because in our culture this is inappropriate." Oh my God, I was really ashamed. I mean, it happens, of course. And of course I did it. But I was crying of happiness that in a different culture people were like that. And then when I was with Swiss delegation everywhere in Chinese country, including China, and they asked us, well, we will try not to serve you, I think, dogs and cats and stuff like that, because they respected us. And vice versa, when they came to us, we hired a special cook. So I've seen those cultures, many other ones. I was with people, I had to live in communism. Communism is very bad because it's very non-tolerant. In communism, if you are like this and you mention God or even concept, basically they kill you or isolate you. It's forbidden. Now nominally in Russia, David, but Russia is no longer a communist country into all the way. But I was in Russia when it was. I was in days of Brezhnev and those guys. And even in former Yugoslavia, they say Tito this, Tito that. Come on. In Tito days, if you were saying you belong to Jesus Christ or even pray or anything, you would be in prison if not killed. And it's not the only country. Eastern Germany, I won't bother. So the Western world is very important for us because the West, they all say, oh, the West is rotten. Wait a minute. I lived happily all my life now, so to speak, in the West because I immigrated to communism 50 years ago or so because I always saw these impossible beings. And I still sign that you cannot trust a communist. Cannot. Because kill God. The moment you kill God, you kill universe, you kill anything. I mean, as you see from my expose today. But if you're in the West has many weaknesses. Number one weakness is we call the democracy, but basically we have financial imperialism or worse, or worse. You don't have to be genius to know that three major entities like BlackRock, Vanguard, or OSP, whatever, and plus whatever others exactly known. You just look at what Forbes publishes on me, and also at the end of the day, let's say 3,000 billionaires, probably 30, really even more. Well, they run the show. Don't tell me they don't, because I was in Davos. I'm often in Geneva and elsewhere in Zurich. Switzerland is a financial country. I have friends, bankers, my students working in that, and I know that bankers don't understand it. You know who runs the finances of the world? Corrections, I mean operationally? Physicist. You would not know, but a few years ago, fairly recently, died the boss of Renaissance Investments next to Brookhaven National Laboratory in New York. He was a physicist. He got a doctorate in 1982, the way I did, but he didn't go to physics because computers emerged. Bill Simmons, and he got computers, put them next outside New York on the Long Island with 200 physicists, mathematicians with best computers. He put 5 guys up front in the Wall Street and had a kind of residence in Connecticut when they hit back the richest millionaires to talk to them. He made billions. Ask the directors at the time of Brookhaven National Laboratory, you didn't have to write to the government. Bill would give them 20 million, whatever. I don't know any physicist who was working in Renaissance Investments who didn't become billionaire. Because at the timing, when I got my PhD, some guys went to that direction. And if you think that physicists who work in finances right now are paid like university professors, they are not. Even if you work on quantum computing, the salaries and also artificial intelligence, they are mind-bogglingly high. So anyway, that gives you kind of a summary why I'm so open-minded and why I think that on planet Earth we have and stand a chance with scientists, primarily mathematicians and physicists, who have extensions toward the other sciences and the areas of complexity. And I emphasize that institutions like Santa Fe Institute for Complexity and many others, including some others that emerged, and in countries, we can communicate, we can advance, and we can eventually, in my humble opinion, get the mankind where it should be. But for that, we have to also have legal aspects reorganized, and operationally that will not be easy, so to speak. Politics, that's yet another topic. But still, if we get that, then we can hope to survive as a mankind and use, including all these things, artificial intelligence and all things that are emerging for the benefit of mankind. There is enough energy. Of course, we have to make sure that the planet is green, but planet is still remarkably resistant. And then last but not least, human health is yet another story, because so-called blue areas where people live 120 years, they're well known. And if you study those people, you see that they really don't go to usual pharmacy and buy just medication. They live differently in harmony with nature. And so I'm also involved with several new projects, including institutions, where we look into the longevity of humans and how to optimize a human. But please listen to this, not digital, not hybrid. We look, can humans as a Homo sapiens, biological, let's call them analog as compared to technological, informational, can emerge in the new civilization as a true representative of everything that mankind stands for, including love, empathy, togetherness, right, and sharing. And it's not communism. Make no mistake. I said very clearly, communism is evil. No, but it's basically what we have in physics. In physics, we have equipartition in energy. When you look, and it's really law of thermodynamics, when you look how energy is distributed in the universe, we have that. We teach that in students. So I'm staying very much in metaphysics, based on physics and things I understand. And with that, I think we can emerge as a long-term civilization with all these other things added in to us, be it special devices, special computing powers, and robots, and God knows what will invent. And then the planet Earth can truly expand, and eventually, if that belongs to us, there will be interstellar travel and everything else, but I don't think it will be done with the classical rockets. So I think that basically sums it up in terms of what I would like to share with you today.